Hi, everybody. It's Jolene with Jovi Star Astrology. Welcome back to the channel. I am going to talk about the full moon in Aquarius that occurred yesterday. And I had intended to do this video yesterday, but the full moon in Aquarius was very interesting and unexpected sort of things came up yesterday. And I'm guessing that may have been some of your experiences as well, but I'm here to talk about it today. And uh, full moons are with us for a little bit. So better late than never. Anyway, yesterday at 11:31 a.m. on the West Coast and 2:31 on the East Coast, we experienced a full moon in Aquarius at 9 degrees. And I'll talk a little bit more later about what 9 degrees of Aquarius represents. Those are times represented in the United States. So if you're not in the United States, then please adjust for your time zone. Before I get into it, I would like to ask you to subscribe if you haven't. I would be very appreciative for that. And otherwise, like and share, comment. That helps me as I grow the channel. And I am very grateful for the interaction. Okay, so the full moon, as we know, is when the sun and the moon are in an opposition, and the sun illuminates the moon. And we know that the moon many times represents things that are hidden, definitely can be emotional. The moon represents our emotions and our environment, right? So when the sun lights that up, it many times it can show us something. And in the sign of Aquarius, it might be something that is unexpected or a little bit off the wall. Aquarius is ruled by Uranus, so yesterday could have been an interesting day, like I said, for a lot of us. And full moons are generally known to be the ending of a cycle or a culmination of some kind of a cycle related to the new moon that occurs 2 weeks prior, but can also be related to longer range cycles. And this full moon related to the Cancer new moon that occurred on June 17th and was quite the new moon with its oppositions to Pluto and the Pluto square to the nodes. May have brought us some very intense emotional situations to deal with, and now if those things didn't come to the surface, we may have felt a lot of pressure at that time emotionally, and this period of time during the full moon could be bringing those things up and out in the open. But we also had a new moon in Aquarius back on January 21st, 2023 at 1 degree of Aquarius. And that new moon has been a longer range cycle that could be related to this full moon, and it's been about 6 months. So new moon energy can last for much longer period of time than 2 weeks. But many times when the full moon comes around and the new moon occurred right before, it's like those things are coming up and we can kind of feel it. And with that new moon in Cancer, I think many of us were feeling things that that involved our emotions or our families, our homes. When we talk about Cancer, it's about our internal emotions many times, and what we keep inside and protect, as well as our outer expression towards things that we are emotionally attached to. But and when you're talking about Cancer, it's history, it's the past. So even if it just means that your reactions and your emotions, and in that case with that new moon opposing Pluto, the pressure that you might be feeling emotionally could be, those reactions are likely coming from a historical place for you based on your experiences. So obviously we know that our reactions are clearly related to our experience, and it represents, for a lot of us, the product of a lifelong conversation and experiences. So a very tense time potentially for the new moon in Cancer that is leading us into this full moon. And at that time, we also had an opposition from Mars in the sign of Virgo to Saturn in the sign of Pisces, which could have had us feeling very pressured to get things done. Virgo is very much about work and detail and maintaining things. And Saturn in the opposition likely had us feeling like we were running into blocks and delays, further exacerbating any kind of emotional pressure or any kind of pressure around responsibilities that we may have been feeling. So it was quite the intense new moon. And again, that type of pressure can create frustrations when we're feeling as if we're running into blocks and limitations while we're trying to get things done in our lives. And that was very much the opposition between Mars and Saturn. On the same day of that Cancer new moon, Venus in the sign of Leo turned retrograde. And the nodes of the moon moved into Aries and Libra from Taurus and Scorpio, where they were for a year and a half. So all of those things, and the fact that Pluto was part of that new moon, squaring the nodes that just changed, having the south node ruler, Venus, the ruler of Libra, going retrograde. Very intense period of time, and faded in many, many ways. And it could have felt like that for you, things that might have been happening or how you were feeling, even if they were just familiar feelings, right? The South Node can bring back things that are familiar to us, as well as situations. But overall, very intense time that's designed to create pressure so that we move forward and change the things in our lives, express things differently, show up in our relationships differently. And a lot of times the universe has to tap into our emotional memory bank or our memory bank in general, those things we remember, to create that kind of pressure so that there's a change that will occur, that needs to occur, right? So likely we felt that new moon and may have been feeling that for the last couple of weeks, or we're feeling something of a longer range cycle that has been going on. And a lot of times when something comes up, we don't always connect the dots, like, oh, this, feeling, or just sort of this little bit of thing that come up. It's like a lot of times we can't envision that is going to turn into something that is triggered by an event like a full moon. But likely if we're sitting and thinking about it and retrospectively, we realize that, oh man, yeah, that was all connected. So that's why journaling is so good. And, writing down your dreams. And if you're into astrology, paying attention to the transits over time, because when things are triggered and happen, going back and, sort of looking at how you laid that out on paper, it kind of brings it together, and it can shed a lot of light on cycles and things that are going on in your life, which, hopefully can help you moving forward. So the segue in, I wanted to go over that because definitely the themes are there. So obviously they interconnect, but we have this full moon here in the sign of Aquarius at 9 degrees. And Aquarius is ruled by Uranus and Saturn. So we know that, and Uranus is sitting in the sign of Taurus, and Saturn is in the sign of Pisces. And so when we're talking about Taurus, this is like physical and material type changes that are related to our resources or our sense of comfort and our sense of self as well. And then Saturn is in the mutable sign of Pisces. And we know that Saturn can create frustrations, blocks, delays, fear, sometimes depression, suppression around things like work and responsibilities in the sign of Pisces. So we have the full moon and the sun on the opposite side. And like I said, the moon represents our emotions and our environment. And in the sign of Aquarius, had us feeling pretty anxious. We could have experienced unexpected twists and turns. Aquarius is an air sign, so it could have had to do with technology or information in some way. It could have had to have it could involve other people, right? The community in general, because Aquarius represents the community, and it also represents what our goals are. So, we could be working hard to that end. Maybe we're in a new group of people, or maybe we feel anxious about it, or, if something unexpected came up, it could have had something to do with any of those themes. And there are a lot of different themes and variables that are in play with every planet and every sign. And of course, it's difficult to go over all of that, but Uranus is the planet of, unexpected change and rebellion, progress, what our dreams are, goals are, and basically overall, just what our place is in society potentially. And Aquarius can also be an energy that has us feeling detached or aloof in some ways, sort of like emotionally detached. So it's good in that sense, where especially if things are crazy that are going on, we can tap into the ability to sort of step back and take a look, a 30,000-foot view, if it's possible. It's not always easy to do that when like you're in the midst of like, anxious situations, or if you're feeling that way. But you could feel like there could be pressure that you feel like you want to break away from something, right? I mean, Uranus wants us to progress into the future, and it can be revolutionary and, cause breakthroughs in good ways as well. And usually when we, jump the broom or cross the bridge into something new, it's because there's some kind of situation, whether that be, internally, something we want, or a situation that is sort of, nudging us to break out of something. And this full moon can represent things like that. And, it may have us contemplating, where it is that we belong in the world. Are we with the right group, or, do we need to separate from where we've been? And it can make us feel like we want to experiment and, do something new. It's like things might have been or be feeling, like they're a little stale, Now, if we've been experiencing things that have pushed us out of our comfort zone during these cycles, and caused a break in some way. And when we think about Uranus and Taurus, and right now Venus is squaring Uranus and Taurus, which is retrograde. So you can see the effect there. It's sort of like, well, it could be money, or our own personal value, or relationships. All of these things can be related. This full moon really looks like something that will be affecting relationships, whether that be with our community and the groups that we're involved in, or personal relationships. But it's definitely putting a focus and a pressure there these days with the other planetary placements. The opposition, the sun in Leo, is very strong. The sun rules the sign of Leo, so it's very, very bright. So illuminating the moon in Aquarius, it's like, I don't think it's going to be difficult to see. Leo's a fixed fire sign. And there's been a lot of activity in the sign of Leo lately. We all know that. And things could get really, really bright in our awareness, right? And, Leo is about our sense of self and our self-expression and the things that we desire and having fun. And it's a lot about our inner child, and children in general. It's about romance and pleasure. It's about taking risks and, going after what it is that we love. With Venus retrograde in Leo, a lot of this might be that we're sort of taking a look back at where we felt loved and recognized. Leo very much needs to be recognized. Leo can be very optimistic and generous, a bright light, playful, childlike, bold, very courageous and super, super loyal. Leo can express itself in just the most giving and altruistic way, especially if it's balanced correctly with its opposition, which is Aquarius. And that's all about, being altruistic and working in the community. But it doesn't always shake out that way for us, right? It depends on where we're at in our life and what our placements are in Leo and what our lessons are to learn. And Leo can also be very self-centered, which, listen, I think we need to be a little self-centered sometimes, but it can also be selfish and egotistical and stubborn, and it can be very dramatic. So all of these themes can potentially come into play with this full moon. I'm going to go ahead and show the chart because I'm going to start talking about some of the aspects that this full moon has made, so you can get a little visual here. So here we have the full moon in the sign of Aquarius, and you can see that up at the top of the chart. This is an Aries rising chart. And so we have the full moon here. And other aspects obviously come into play. And it's interesting because when I was looking at this, I sort of picked up on some things that were very interesting to me. One thing in particular, which I'll get into, but we know that an opposition creates a need for balance in some way. And so it could be very much a push-pull type of energy. And in the sign of Leo, it can be very much about yourself and your self-expression. And in the sign of and the moon in the sign of Aquarius can be very much about the community and what's going on outside of us. So push pull, how do we balance that? That's what this is about. But this is the ending of some kind of a cycle or culmination of some kind of cycle, which again, like I mentioned, could have triggered some kind of event. So that's the full moon. Now we know, like I mentioned, that the sun rules the sign of Leo, and we have a lot going on in Leo. I'm going to make those a little smaller. We have a lot going on in Leo. Mercury was in Leo. It's moved out now into the sign of Virgo. But we have Venus in Leo, and it's retrograde. That's that little RX there. That RX means that it's retrograde. So she is coming into very close. She retrograded at 28 degrees, and now she's moving back, and she'll retrograde back to 12 degrees of Leo. But during that time, she makes a lot of aspects, and I did talk about that in another video. But because this full moon is in the sign of Leo, and we have Venus there that the sun is ruling, Venus very much comes into play with this full moon. And we also have Mercury here that is in the sign of Virgo. And like the last moon, we had Mars at that time that was opposing Saturn. And now during this lunar event, this full moon, and it was the new moon in Cancer that Mars was opposing Saturn. During this full moon in Aquarius, we have Mercury and Virgo opposing Saturn. So that's just further throwing in some kind of an interaction that could be causing frustrations for us. And Mercury opposite Saturn, Mercury and Virgo opposite Saturn, again, just much like Mars, has a lot to do with our minds and thoughts, information, messages, conversations, our work, our daily routines, the things we have to maintain. And there we can feel like we're running into roadblocks, and this can come out. Virgo very much wants to is very detailed, right? It has a plan, it's very detailed, and there's something here with this opposition with Saturn that could be blocking the expression of that in some way. Like, oh, maybe something's not quite right, I have to go back and redo it. Maybe something's not ready. Maybe I don't have clarity around something. This opposition can also represent bad news around something that we're trying to accomplish or work on. It can represent serious conversations that can be emotional. Pisces, Saturn is in the sign of Pisces, but that can involve like criticism, maybe some kind of a reality check. And so we have this opposition going on along with this full moon, sort of just like further adding to the story of whatever is coming to ahead here, culmination during this cycle for us. And with that opposition, it's like, what is the solution? And with any opposition, it's like balance it out. It's like, well, here's the block, or here's the information that was laid out to me. What's the best way to handle that tension? It's kind of just doing the best that you can, realizing what that block is or what's going on in that conversation, whether or not you felt criticized or, hurt in some way. And it can do that, is maybe to just try and go back and take care of whatever it is that you can in the best way that you can to satisfy that requirement, right? Saturn requires things be, correct. And, try and put something in place that is acceptable. Listen, Virgo is very efficient, so it's able to do those kind of things, but it doesn't change the fact that in some way we're being forced to do something different in some way, or we're being inhibited in some way by getting something done. So that just adds to this new moon. Better to sort of step back from it, and you can feel frustration in your body. I mean, I can feel it in my mind. I can feel it in my body. It causes me to get a little bit scattered and then could potentially lose my sense of like, what is it that I'm actually trying to do and how do I get there? But it would be good to step back from that and, release some of the tension in some way by reworking something possibly, or just coming up with a plan. So that opposition is very important and interesting, that during the last lunar event, we had an opposition from Virgo to Saturn and Pisces, with the planet Mars. Also, and remember too, Saturn does come into play here because Saturn is one of the rulers of this full moon, right? Aquarius. We also have right now going on here with this, we have a Mars now, and that was Mars that was having us run around crazy trying to get things done, running into problems back at the time of the new moon. Now Mars is trining which is a nice harmonious aspect trining the sign of Jupiter. So we may start to, get a sense of direction in some way, or a realization, or we're able to see something about the bigger picture of what has been going on the last 2 weeks, or overall, just realizing that maybe our direction during this time period, may not be contributing to what it is that we overall want to accomplish. Jupiter is a beneficial energy, and a trine is very harmonious, but, and I've mentioned this before, Jupiter can exacerbate a situation and create, like a bigger plot line, or it's like when things open up and we see the bigger picture, it's like sometimes things can come flooding in. So Jupiter can help, but it can be too much, and we could end up being very lucky and accomplishing something fantastic and profitable, or it can make it easy for us to get something done and wrap something up, and that's good. But it can represent, or it can turn into a very big accomplishment, but it can also create a big mess too. So it just kind of depends on where you're at in your life. So that aspect is at play as well. And we don't always know, and what will happen during a full moon event. Definitely in Aquarius, ruled by Uranus, we could have had surprises, and this can bring changes in relationships or situations. This type of a full moon event can sort of turn things around for us, put us on a different path. If those things happen, it was likely meant to be. It's good to step back, like I said, even the full moon like this, in intense emotional situations, and try and create some distance, right, emotionally, or at least take a look at things, from a very, intellectual type of place, and try and balance those out. We might want to be, and we might be breaking free from something that we have felt very pressured by, very contained, that, with all of the Leo energy in the opposition, that, we may not feel honored or recognized. With all of the planets in Leo, and then the full moon coming through with this opposition, we may not really feel like we're in the right place or know where we belong. And those kinds of breaks and things that come up may put us in a direction that is better suited for us, or at least can bring us experiences that open up our mind. We just probably are looking for where it is that we belong in the world, right? And the retrograde in Leo having us look back at where we did feel recognized, where we were in a place where we were having fun and we were appreciated. And if we're in a place now that is uncertain, or we're not feeling like we're part of something, that can be very difficult emotionally, because, like I said, Leo likes to be seen and heard, and it is a very feeling planet. The sun is actually Leo is a very feeling sign, rather, and of course the sun is big and bright. So in many ways, it's like we could be feeling as if not only that we are out of place and we don't exactly know where we should be or where we're going, and we're yearning for new experiences, we could be feeling really disenfranchised with where we've been, and unappreciated even, and trying to remember when we did feel good, you know, a way to break out, break free, and sort of get some kind of good feeling back. Or you know, Leo is about being on stage and being happy. So, you know, this could feel too a little bit like a fall from grace, right? If the Leo expressions are that of, you know, being selfish and entitled and expecting this, and, you know, just sort of throwing caution to the wind and not thinking about other people, not tapping into the Aquarius side, there could be, those could be some, you know, much needed lessons to balance out that energy. So it just depends on, you know, how that expresses in your life and what's going on in your life. But could be very, very difficult times. Now, because these are fixed signs, Aquarius is a fixed air sign and Leo is a fixed fire sign. So this will be affecting Leo and Aquarius placements around 9 degrees, as well as making squares to the other fixed signs, Taurus and Scorpio, around those same degrees. And of course, if you have any personal placements in Leo or Aquarius, you could be affected significantly by this full moon. I wanted to mention too, back with the when the new moon in Aquarius occurred in January, on January 21st at 1 degree of Aquarius, that could have possibly been the beginning of the cycle that's now coming to the surface, or we're recognizing in some way. And interestingly enough, this full moon is at 9 degrees of fixed signs, Aquarius and Leo. And at the time of that new moon in Aquarius, the nodes were in Taurus and Scorpio, which again, we've been creating that square, and they were at 9 degrees. So, you know, I noticed these little like synchronicities and connected type of things. And when I saw that, I was just like, oh, yeah, this is, you know, definitely for some people, a longer range cycle. So yeah, think about what has been going on since February till now, February 21st up until now, and then what started to sort of rustle your feathers or your emotions around the time of the new moon in Cancer on June 17th, and then what's happened now. Very interesting stuff, right? I'm going to stop the share here. You know, we have Jupiter very much in play here as well. I didn't mark it on the chart, but it is in a square to this full moon. And as I described with Mars trining, which is harmonious, free-flowing energy from Mars to the planet Jupiter, the full moon here is squaring in a T-square to Jupiter and Taurus. And so this can be news related to your resources or your environment in some way. This is just opening up the mind and information coming in that can be, you know, occurring very quickly, but creating some kind of attention in not having us, it can be just so much all at once, right? So that T-square creates tension. So something is wanting to move. It requires some kind of action. And anytime we have a T-square, the release point is on the opposite side. So Taurus is at 13, or Uranus is at, Jupiter is at 13 degrees of Taurus, and the opposition of that would be Scorpio. So, you know, it could have been something, this could really be very intense. It can be an intense release and emotional, and it could, you know, be bringing up fears and issues. And, you know, we know Scorpio can be very, very intense energy to deal with. And it might even indicate that the result is a releasing of something, whether that be emotional or it be something, you know, in our physical world. So that square to Jupiter is making this full moon bigger. Jupiter makes things bigger. So, it's either bigger profits, bigger gains, a view of the bigger picture or a direction, or it could be creating a bigger set of issues or scattered energy or more tension, more stress, which can further make us feel like we want to break away from something. And things that could be happening for us, right? It may not even be, our choice to separate from something or move into a different different area of our lives, but things could be happening that are forcing us to either take a good look at that and sense into how we're feeling, or it could just be, like I said, turning us around and putting us in a different direction for a lot of fated reasons. With Pluto continuing to square the nodes and all of the planets that are in retrograde, this is a time of evolutionary change, and it doesn't always feel good, but it's pushing us towards experiencing sometimes things that we've experienced and challenging us to do things potentially different, and to be able to work with other people. We know the nodes are in Libra and Aries, and so this is very relational. And all of us are going to fall on different spectrums in terms of our expression of any sign and placement. And with Libra and Aries, it's like Libra can overgive and do too much. And, in the interest of keeping things balanced, or hanging on to something that it loves and it values. And Aries really wants to just charge forward and take care of itself, and make changes active. And those are cardinal energies. So there's change there. But with Pluto squaring the nodes and adding to all of these lunar events, and it in retrograde as well, and it also in Capricorn, we're feeling this pressure, right? And so how are we handling it? And I know I talked about that during the last video, but all of that comes into play during this full moon as well. So it's retrospective. There's a lot of retrospective and taking a look back at things these days. And a full moon is basically, a cycle ending a culmination. And it is a culmination of a cycle that has been in the past. So right now we are really being put, I believe, in a place where we're having to feel and experience things that we have felt or experienced in the past, and in relationships likely, and being challenged to lean into that familiarity and either do something different, take better care of ourselves, step out of situations that can't be balanced or isn't our job to balance, and take better care of ourselves, or the inverse of that. It's like, well, can I be more compromising and helpful and not thinking so much about myself? So a lot going on in general in the astrology, but considering this full moon and the potential intensity and twists and turns and anxiety, it all comes into play. And all of those squares and with the nodes and with Pluto in play can really be making us feel a lot of push and a lot of pressure. So I hope everybody is doing well out there. I'm really sorry I didn't get to this video earlier. I do also want to read the Sabian symbols for the full moon. I study the Sabian symbols. I don't always read them, but I think this one is interesting, and it might add some essence for you around the themes of this new moon. So I'll read. It's 9 degrees of Aquarius. So when we're looking at the Sabian symbols, we always round up. So I want to read this, and then I'll also read to you the Sabian symbol for 10 degrees of Leo, and that's the opposition of the full moon. And that may give you, it might give you a little bit more of a connection with what's going on in your life. Aquarius 10, a popularity that proves ephemeral. And ephemeral is just sort of like up and down, in and out, here, there, here today, gone tomorrow. So it does have something to do with being, flexible, or, being able to deal with change. The key word is approbation, and that is what the essence of the Sabian symbol is, a popularity that proves ephemeral. The theme is the swing of the pendulum. This symbol speaks to having the courage to keep moving forward, even when the going gets rough or when there seems to be no appreciation of effort or accomplishment. The image of a popularity that proves ephemeral alludes to the inevitable downfall or personal rejection that every individual will experience at some time in his life. The implication is that success is actually the greatest point of challenge in any experience. The average person is inclined to rest on his laurels when he hears applause, while the individual with foresight knows that eventually the pendulum will swing in the other direction. The suggestion here is to learn to use the praise and approval of others as an incentive to higher achievement, while looking within for any ultimate source of strength or sustainment. Positive at its highest, this symbol represents imperturbability. And I had looked up that word because I didn't know what it was. So hang on a second. I'm going to, because I want to make sure I get this right. So imperturbability means to take a step back, to try and control your reactions in the midst of chaos, to sort of detach yourself a little bit. And so see how those themes definitely are folding potentially into this full moon for us. Self-confidence and fortitude in the face of discouragement and criticism. And that Mercury opposite Saturn can bring that criticism or that feeling of, not being accepted, right? And we just kind of have to know who we are, right? And that we put our best foot forward. Negative, using others and going along with the crowd in the hope of gaining personal advantage. Now, if you notice, based on what I explained about the Leo Aquarius axis, the Sabian symbol for 10 degrees Aquarius does incorporate the opposition to that, the polarity to that, which is Leo, in its interpretation. So it's interesting and fascinating. Today, the accent is on rejection and disappointment. You could be criticized or ignored by those who previously patted you on the back and praised your efforts or performance. The opportunity is that your greatest advantage lies in just being yourself. If you aren't appreciated where you are, find a friendlier environment. That is the moon in Aquarius and all the angst. It's like we're wanting to break away. Are we in the right place? Do we need to detach from where we are and attach to something different? Do your best and let the chips fall where they may. Guard against trying to please everyone. It can't be done. Stepping stones, and these are just words that are related. You can sort of take this and add it to the description. Trendiness, transientness, which is like ephemeral, right? It's like picking up and moving along, experiencing different things, coming and going. Elusiveness, evanescence, change, instability, impermanence, momentary, passing, mutable, perishable, short-lived, temporary, brief, or disappearing. So that's the degree of the moon, 10 degrees of Aquarius. And I'll go ahead and also read for you Leo 10, because we can't have an expression, especially in astrology, unless the polarity is involved. So both sides matter, especially with the full moon. And Leo 10. Okay, Leo 10. The Sabian symbol for Leo 10 is early morning dew. Keyword rejuvenation. The theme, a new and better day. This symbol speaks to the invigorating and refreshing energy and enthusiasm that accompany any renewal of effort or new cycle of experience, and to the cosmic assist given to all worthwhile struggle. The image of early morning dew alludes to the dawning of a new day or a fresh start. The dew that magically appears on the cold surface of the earth sometime during the night is actually the condensation of the previous day's warm atmospheric moisture, and its effect is to freshen and revitalize the fields and flowers. Implicit in this beautiful image is the idea that nature is blessing man's efforts. This symbol also alludes to the fact that an individual often receives the help he needs when he is facing the darkest moments of his soul. The seeker must learn to expect the unexpected. Now, this is the Leo Sabian symbol, but the polarity Aquarius ruled by Uranus is unexpected, right? What can be unexpected? The emphasis in this degree is on cosmic sustainment and a refusal to recognize personal limitation. Positive at its highest, this symbol represents a gift for finding the opportunity in every situation. Negative, the tendency to keep putting off decisions and actions until it's too late, and an inability to recognize the strength that lies within. Today, the accent is on faith and guardian angels. You may receive unexpected help or be given a fresh start today. Expect a miracle. I'm keeping my fingers crossed, right? Miracles for all of us. The opportunity, your greatest advantage lies in refusing to acknowledge defeat. Try to look at the bright side of the situation and see what tomorrow brings. Guard against losing hope or giving up too soon. Avoid thinking in terms of limitation or lack. Don't create a self-fulfilling prophecy. Stepping stones, rejuvenation, which is renewal, right? So I think this is kind of like saying, no matter what's going on, there's light at the end of the tunnel. No matter if we're not being recognized or feeling our best self, or something is, causing us problems, whether that be a relationship or our finances, that how we feel about ourselves and our ability to actually create change in our lives, or at least flow with it, that maybe a little bit of faith has to come along with that, but that things will change. And if we are experiencing upsets in our lives, it's in being pointed towards a different direction. It's for some type of change, renewal, right? Rejuvenation, renewal, revival. Restoration, revitalization, invigoration, stimulation, energy, strength, refreshment, fortification, support, blessing, favor, grace, endowment, bestowal, fresh start, and purity. So it's interesting that I always love the Sabian symbols, because it does add to the interpretation of the astrology when you look at it as a whole. So I always love to study them. First of all, I don't always read them out loud, but this was it was significant, and I thought, well, I'm going to read that because it definitely adds to the explanation of the planetary placements for this full moon. So sometimes, Leo, right? Sometimes we have to find our own place and appreciate ourselves in spite of, our failures. And I was watching something a couple of days ago, and it was really inspirational. It was this very inspirational person, and they asked him, what would be, this guy had gone through like a lot of trials and tribulations since he was born, but they asked him what would his advice be to how it is that he's maintained such positivity and been able to rise above his challenges. And that's a lot of what a Leo energy can do. And he said, learn how to fail. I was like, oh, that's actually really significant and important. It's that, well, it's okay to not be on the stage, Leo, or feel like you're being recognized. It doesn't matter. It's like, well, who you are on the inside. It's like that's what these Sabian symbols said. It's like there's going to be a new day, even if we're feeling disconnected, or we're someplace where we feel like an alien, or there's some kind of break or problem, or there's tension or anxiety. That picking yourself back up and trying again, or looking at it from a different angle, can be helpful. In that, what, sometimes we fail, and if we learn how to fail, maybe and be okay with that, right? Be okay with failing. That makes everything, it just sort of makes the human experience a little bit more real, right? I know, all of us want to, put our best face forward, and be able to share with people our lives are great and we're happy. But the reality is that's not always the case. And sometimes things don't work out the way that we wanted to, but maybe the way that they were meant to. So I thought that was really a cool thing. And I wrote it down somewhere, and I'll try and read that when I can. But, and especially for those of us that are in situations where we have had to take the lead in our lives and the lives of others, and there's a lot of responsibility. And I think that we can all, tell stories about how we are in those situations, have been in those situations, or that we feel that way. And we want everything to be good, right? Just overall to be good. And when it's not that way, or we don't feel like our efforts are, getting us anywhere or anybody else, we can feel like we failed, right? So that's hard. But it's okay. So it was great advice to me, and I went like, oh, that's cool. So learn how to fail, and be okay with it. And maybe you'll find out down the road that it wasn't really a failure. It was a learning experience for sure. But sometimes our failures put us in places where we are better able to succeed. You never know. The possibilities are endless. Anyway, I'd like to hear what is going on for you, what happened for you during this full moon event. It's not completely over. Thank you for gracing me the opportunity to do this a little bit later. I really appreciate that. Please like, share, comment, subscribe to the channel if you haven't. If you'd like to have a session with me, taking a look at your birth chart, my email and my website are listed in the description box, and I would love to meet you. So hang in there, right? Happy adventures, right? Aquarius is also a very social sign. So maybe, things are landing for you where you are experiencing new things and moving forward, and, already attaching to other groups and people in life is moving forward for you. And that, we all have our challenges, and things come on at different times. And, the full moons or any lunar event might not affect us particularly. Look at your chart for 9 degrees of the fixed signs and your personal placements. But, sometimes we see these things happen, in the world, right? Aquarius too. I mean, take a look, politics and technology, and Leo is fame and fortune and solar figures, so people that everybody knows. And so you can look at the astrology and see how it's playing out too. Again, children, things like that. But anyway, you may be in a place where you are, there's a trajectory for you that's just moving forward, and you found a new place to roll and to learn and experience. And if so, yay, that's awesome. Yay for you, right? So we're all experiencing something different. So whatever that is, right, lean into it, enjoy the ride, and be okay, to fail, right? It's okay to fail. So I will see you next time. And until then, may the stars forever be in your favor. Take good care, and bye for now.